So, like I said before, to cap off the show today, we're going to review One Night in Miami. The film follows four civil rights icons: Malcolm X, Sam Cooke, Jim Brown, and Muhammad Ali, spending a night together in the Hampton House in 1964. And joining us today for this review is my friend Michelle Batista, a talented, aspiring actress, one half of the Power Broke Girls, and just an all-around doll. So, Michelle,
thank
you so much.
Thank you so much. Beautiful intro. I'm flattered.
I try. I have my moments. So, now, Michelle, I guess we should have done this with the first guest that we had, but since you're the guest, you really should go first. What exactly are your thoughts on One Night in Miami?
In general, I liked it a lot. It humanized four historical figures of our time and the past time. It showed like an array of colors. It showed them being frustrated, being very happy, being very silly. It's not just like the stereotypes of who Malcolm X was or Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke. So I think it really humanized the characters, which made you relate to them in different ways. And I'm sorry if you guys can hear my dog. He's scratching the door right now, so I'm ignoring him. But yeah, overall, I really liked it. I kept like closing my eyes because I'm like, is someone gonna get killed? I'm like, because we know who died, like we know who's dead and who's still alive, right? So I'm like, are they gonna show it or is this just gonna be? So yeah, I'm not gonna spoil anything though.
Yeah. So funny, building on the whole character thing that you were talking about. Again, that's one of the things that makes this movie so strong. There's a really just like full realization, even though this is a fictional account, there's really just like a real full-bodied realization as to who these people are, who these people really could have been. You see their insecurities, you see their internal and external struggles, you also see their camaraderie with each other, and you also see their conflicts with each other too. And I just loved seeing them just dig around with each other. Like I never pictured them in that sense, but I loved watching them do that. But I also loved to see them kind of just like butt heads with each other too at certain points. Because one of the things about this film is that most of it takes place in a motel room. So there's not much space to back off from each other. And when you don't have too much space between one another, tension usually starts to build. And that tension is it's very intriguing to watch unfold. I loved how even it goes from the conflict building between them and the tension building to, once again, them just like having a great time with each other. And that transition back and forth always seems seamless. It always feels like a roller coaster ride that never really goes. It doesn't feel like it's going down. Like, yes, it kind of goes in different directions. Like, it kind of zigzags back and forth between like different tones and different moods, but it never feels like it's going down. It never feels like it's calming down. And in a film like this, I never thought that would be the case. And even in terms of like the characterizations too, they all feel like their own. They all feel like their own people, which when you have four people just bouncing off each other in mostly one space for a long time, that's very hard to do. That's very hard to accomplish.
I definitely feel like it's just friendship, right? It's like when you have friends that believe in your potential a lot, like you feel comfortable talking to them because it's like unconditional love. Like, you're not going to just tell a random stranger certain things or with a certain tone. But with my best friend, I will definitely feel comfortable checking her and being like, hey, listen, you're better than this. I see you this. So, and that little push and shove. But then they're cracking jokes, listening to music. And I liked it a lot because I didn't know certain things. Like, I didn't know that Muhammad Ali was so young, when he became, like, known as the world's greatest. So that was interesting. And, Jim Brown, I always felt like he was a little older because he seemed more mature than, let's say, Sam Cooke or Muhammad Ali. And then I Googled it and he was a little bit older than them. So I was like, okay, that makes sense because he seemed maybe the least, not controversial, but he seemed like the least agitated person in the motel room,
He was more reserved. He was definitely
that's a good word. He was more reserved. He was kind of like trying to be the maker a little bit, but still like assertive, you know, not really passive. He's still like, hey, don't mess with me, but we should just chill. And Muhammad Ali was just like hyped up and just trying to. So it's really cool to see all those different tones, yeah, and energy.
Darius, do you have any? I know you have thoughts on this.
Yeah,
movie,
for
you
sure.
really look forward to talking
Just
about this.
like for me, knowing, especially, I live in a family that they very much adore being black and respect their heritage and respecting the black community and supporting black community and black actors, actresses. Just basically wanting to see young African Americans to do well, especially considering the amount of racism and stereotypes and prejudice that we, face and everything. And so when I saw it last night, 'cause it was relatively late when I got home, and my dad really wanted to watch it, but he was too tired, so I kept watching it. If there's any complaint I do have, because I do have one, is that I wish it was longer, because the dynamic between the characters and were so intriguing and so interesting, because every character and who they are really stood out to me. And for me, considering really the biggest scene and the biggest moment they took time in, that was really long, but I loved it because there were so many different perspectives and so many different ideals and ways to handle and how they approach to handle racism in America and how they want to do well. And you see Malcolm X's point of view, you see Sam Cooke's point of view, and to me, that dynamic, especially between those two, because they were talking about it, I was like, this is really well done. This is really excellent. This dialogue, that really hit. That hit. The music hit right there. Almost everything. I have almost no problems, except I wish it was longer, because there were so many interactions, especially one of them that I was like, okay, this is unusual, but then at the end of that interaction, it hit, and I'm like, there it is. Okay. I was about to say, this guy's too nice, especially back then. And so,
right off the bat, I was like,
Yeah.
and there
towards
it
the
is.
beginning, right? That beginning scene?
For sure. And Darius.
yeah.
I saw that. I'm like, oh, wow, this conversation is actually going, it's actually really pleasant. I'm like, is this too good to be true? It feels like-
Exactly, and I was like, that's
feels
too
like-
nice.
Well,
Then something happens. I'm like, there it is. There it is.
Yeah, and that's sometimes how it happens, to a lot of people. My mom and a couple family members, I know.
that happens to
have
everyone.
these
That happens to every
experiences.
person of color, especially Black people.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to tell you guys that Darius, I'm so happy that you're Black, because I'm gonna tell you why. Because coming to on the show, I actually wanted to ask Joe previously. I wanted to ask him, and I forgot to, if another guest or the host was going to be a Black person, because I do feel like we need, if we're going to talk about this film, a Black person should be present, because racism, colorism, everything about the movement, we shouldn't have a conversation with just a Spanish girl or a white guy or Asian. It should be a Black person that knows like his or her roots, and still feeling it, especially during the climate of right now in our time period, everything that's happening. I loved some of the themes of this film were basically showing you, just like the beginning with that guy, what a white liberal is, or what they think a white progressive person is, as in like, no, you're my buddy, da-da-da-da. Oh, sorry, you can't step close, you can't use my bathroom, but I'm gonna pat you in the back and I hope you make millions of dollars, right? So it's like the subtle racism versus just like the blatant racism. It just reminds me of literally both political parties that we're dealing with. So by you talking about that, it really does touch that. Colorism with Malcolm X and Jim Brown and their conversation, it's big, it's known, it's real. So that's why I'm saying, like, thank you. I'm happy Darius is on, because I wouldn't feel to be honest, I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about the situation if there wasn't another Black voice that was present to talk about his experience watching the film too.
Yeah, I mean, my experience, because I've dealt with my own form of racism relatively mainly in high school that I'm aware of. But in general, for me personally, I try to separate my emotions to my logical side of thinking and everything, because I know typically for me, I can get emotional, I can get really too hectic, but then at the end of the day, for me, I don't want to approach my actions from an emotional standpoint. So when I saw this movie, and I saw that with Muhammad Ali quite a bit. And again, because of those differentiations between all the characters and their ideals and their way of thinking and their way of execution, I found fascinating. And of course, the one dynamic that interactions I loved the most was between um, Malcolm X and Sam Cooke, because they were both approaching how do we support our community, and you saw Malcolm X's way, and we all know Malcolm X's way, especially in history. The only thing was typically in American history, I think history in general, is that it's always written on the winner's side. That's just typically how it always happens. This goes for America, this goes for Japan, China, wherever it is. Um, and so there's a certain ego in history that I wish it wasn't there when you teach it. And so for me, watching this film and just knowing about my parents and their issues with racism and everything like that, and for myself included as well, I love this movie. I love every second of it. I love the dynamics, everything amongst the lines. And it just shows you that racism still exists. Prejudice still exists. Discrimination still exists. It's just evolved and adapted in a psychological way that not a lot of people can see. And you need these type of mediums like film, like television, like animation, whatever, to bring it to the forefront because it exists. And the only way to, or one of the biggest ways to really tackle it is to talk about it. And I think this movie, and amongst others that are considered staples of, hey, every black person should watch, like Roots, like 12 Years a Slave, etc., you need to watch it because this offers a perspective that you need to see. And one of the things I loved about this film is that, hey, we have different perspectives, but you know what? I still respect you for having this way of how you want to execute it. I may not agree with it, but that's all right. That is who you are. That is not who I am, And especially between Malcolm X and Sam Cooke, they had different ways, and it's perfectly fine. And you also see just how into it they are. And again, these are delicate topics. These are uh, not just delicate topics, but also important topics because at the end of the day, even in 2021, racism still exists, and we need to teach those fundamentals to the younger generation. Because as I talked to you, Joe, and one of my other friends, that one of my biggest issues, especially in America and racism and education and knowing history, I always believe that it comes down to personally parents educating them, talking to them, communicating it, really breaking it down for a lot of people to understand. And I thought this movie did it so well, especially in the long scene that is the important scene, because that just shows you can have a great conversation with different ideals and different philosophies and still be friends at the end of the day.
And I think it's more important now more than anything because we look at where we are in the world, like things have never been more divided. Like everyone has assumptions about each other for whatever reason. And there's just like a very polarizing nature to everything like in our society. It's really sad. And like, people have lost, friendships over like, how they like, view the world and everything like that too.
Yeah.
So, this movie again ended up being important in really in a bigger way than like, you might have even thought. And like, as far as like these conversations that these characters have, they went in directions that like, I never would have expected, and I think one of the reasons that these characters are so interesting. Actually, before I get into that point, there's a point that you made, Darius, as far as like the movie being that you wish it was longer. I felt like it was like just.
That's just me
I
personally.
felt like it was like honestly, I felt like it was just the perfect length. And the reason why I feel like it was just the perfect length is that like I feel like the pace and the rhythm of this movie was downright perfect. Honestly, I thought it was perfect. There's a very much a rhythm. There's an energy to this film, and I think that has to do in large part with the direction. This movie was directed by Regina King. This is her feature directorial debut, and I gotta say, what a way to go! If my feature directorial debut can be this solid, then I could die a hero. So I think honestly, great job on her part. And again, like I said, this is a director who clearly has control in every part that goes into making a film, whether it's bringing out great performances. Again, 4 performers are all terrific. There's not a weak note in this cast.
Yeah,
whether it's the
yeah.
cinematography, whether it's the editing, whether it's just the overall artistic design of the film. And, going back to the performance, I have to give shout-outs to everybody. Kingsley Ben-Adir as Malcolm X, Leslie Odom Jr. as Sam Cooke, Aldis Hodge as Jim Brown, and Eli Goree as Cassius Clay or Muhammad Ali. All of them knock it out of the park. Like I said, big cast, or not really so much of a big cast, but it's a lot of characters that are present throughout pretty much the entire movie. And no one eclipses each other, and no one falls short of each other. They all have different ways of making themselves known, making themselves important, and every single one of them knocks it out of the park. This is a great cast, and it's a wonderfully utilized cast.
I agree 100%. And 2 points I wanted to make before. First of all, shout out to Regina King. She is a Black woman directing it, boss lady. And, this could have flopped, right? Because it's just people in a hotel room.
Yeah.
For the most of it.
Yep.
So it could have just went left, right? So we really, the dialogue and the characters' development and description really, because it's not like a major plot is happening, right? Like there's no cars chasing each other and adrenaline and stuff, right? There's none of that fluff. It's just real conversation. So it could have went left. So we have to give shout out to everyone that wrote it, that directed it, that produced it. It was so good. And the second part that I wanted to just piggyback off what Darius said earlier, which is very relatable, it's very true, and because I'm an activist and and as a woman of color, I'm very much passionate about social injustices, that it really resonated with me with how Malcolm X it was and how Sam Cooke was, because this is something, the song and dance has been in the African American community for a lot of years. That's not present in the white community. It isn't present in other communities, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because they don't have the privilege, African Americans, to just be a person and have followed dreams and do this. They always feel the weight of the community in their back of their shoulders. So you see that between Sam Cooke going like, dude, I don't have to talk about social injustice. I just want to make music. And Malcolm X is like, no, you are a voice. You are a prominent voice in history. Do it. Utilize it. Where other people, say the majority, aka white people in America, they don't feel that pressure because their group has never been oppressed the way African Americans have been for the last 400 years. So I would just like to say that I really like the dynamic between Sam Cooke and Malcolm X. People trying to follow their dreams versus feeling the weight of their community. That's what I took from that part. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Darius had a look on his face like he was going to follow up with that.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
There's a lot I was thinking about,
Sure.
and I was going through. Okay, emotions, logic. No, let's separate them right now.
Also, one thing when it comes to emotion and logic is when you are debating with someone, let's say someone that doesn't deal with racism, and you deal with racism, and you're debating, and you're being logical, but you're emotional. Just because you are emotional when you're being like logical, that doesn't invalidate the logic as well.
I'm very well.
Some people feel like some people confuse being calm and collective with having an emotional unattachment to the cause. So they're like, look at how I'm talking, look how I'm debating. I'm right, even though you're hysterical or emotional, but they are not having an emotional attachment to the cause. And I'm just throwing that out there because I've witnessed it and I've been in debates before where people misconstrued what that means. You can be emotional and have logic as well. And just like you said it, you can also separate the two as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I kind of wish that I watched this movie a bit sooner because this movie did come out in theaters on Christmas Day, and it only came out on Amazon Prime this past Friday. And because Darius and I already did our top films of 2020 list. And this would I missed it by that much. So this film, honestly, this would have been at the top.
For me as well.
I could see this as easily as a heavy Oscar contender. I think it's already getting a lot of buzz. And I feel like there are a lot of times where Oscar movies, they win, but they don't exactly deserve it. And who knows, why they win for whatever reason. This movie, I could see this winning, and it will absolutely deserve it.
What was the first movie that you guys put on your list?
Up until this one, I think the number one movie for 2020 for me was Soul, the new Disney picture.
But I love Soul. It was
Soul was
beautiful.
awesome. Soul was
I
awesome.
forget what was my number one, but I know Soul was up there for me. I think Soul was my number two.
What was number one for you, Darius?
I forgot my number one, but I know Soul was definitely up there.
Yeah, Soul was. It touched the soul.
I love
Okay.
Soul. No, but yeah, so like with One Night in Miami, like one of the things, and because right before I saw that movie, my dad and my family were all talking about racism, and I'm not a very vocal person, I guess, in my family talking about these things because I always like to think about before I talk. That's always, philosophies of like think before you speak, act, think before you talk, that sort of thing. So I'm just absorbing everything in and just seeing their perspective. And then after watching this movie, I was like, wow, there's a lot of things that people just don't understand in a certain perspective because perspective and life has a lot of moments and experiences. And if you don't experience certain things, you're not going to be fully aware of it. And that's why I love Soul for that reason, because they sort of, switch bodies to experience a different world and different perspective and point of view. And so with One Night in Miami, and I have to give shout out to Eli, the main actor that played Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
I remember him from The 100, and that's a TV series. And I kind of liked him, but in this one, he gave it his all. I really liked him. I was like, yo, he is
huge
good.
butt. I was just butt.
Wow.
And I'm like, is it really his butt? Or like, did Muhammad Ali also have a big butt and like they put padded on it? But I'm like jealous. I'm like, whoa, this dude has a big butt. Of course, you guys probably weren't looking, but I was like,
No,
I did see that, but I didn't want to think of that.
okay, so you seen it and you moved on.
Yep, I was like, interesting. Okay, anyway, back to the dialogue.
That's funny.
That's not the direction I thought.
Sorry, I had to just. Sorry, but you were saying, yeah. He knocked it out the park. I think they did a great job casting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Michelle, you want to just give us a little info about your podcast, just like the elevator pitch, what it's about exactly, where we can find it, and where your co-host was today?
And your social security. All right, elevator pitch. All right, my name is Michelle Batista. My co-host is Sudie Lee. She's not here right now. She is hanging out with her mom because she hadn't seen her in a while. We are called the Power Broke Girls. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud. We're best friends, and we just talk about current events, and I think what makes us strong is basically our personalities, the dynamic and chemistry that we have, that we bounce back from each other, the energy. I also have no filter. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. In today's...
you're such a quiet lamb, Michelle. Like, I never
I have no filter.
I always have to wonder exactly what it is you mean when you say it, so...
Yes. I am definitely not mysterious with my opinions. I have opinions, and I try to be as honest and real as a human being as possible, but also in a very polite manner. But we talk about everything. We talk about sex, relationships, cheating, racism, protesting, climate, everything, aging. Just like we don't really have one set thing because we have so many friends from different aspects of everything. So we like to bring them in and talk about it, whether it's political, whether it's not, whether it's social, whether it's whatever. So it's awesome. Power Broke Girls. It's always power before the broke because we're still broke, but we are powerful and we're getting there slowly but surely. But it's fun. It's always a good time. It's silly. But then we can be serious. So basically, we're just two girls that are two catches for the whole package.
Yep.
That sounds like my Tinder bio. It's like, we're everything. You should date me. See how I made you guys laugh right there?
Yeah.
But yeah.
That wasn't on your Tinder page. No, just kidding. But no, again.
Well, I'm not on Tinder, so I wouldn't know.
Hinge, Bumble. We don't judge, Darius.
No, I'm on none.
So many podcasts have like a particular niche as far as like what they talk about. Like obviously Darius and I talk about like movies and TV shows. Like, we had another friend of ours on like before you, whose podcast mainly about like sports and the Yankees because he's a Yankee fanatic, even more so than Derek Jeter. But like, what's interesting about your podcast that your niche is your dynamic between you and your best friend, and that dynamic. While like, yeah, everyone has a best friend that they have a dynamic with. Your dynamic with your best friend is different than someone else's dynamic with their best friend, and that's what makes your podcast unique.
Thank you.
You talk about literally everything. Like, if it happened here, if it happened in Australia, you're gonna talk about it.
There's no boundaries in our friendship. We actually call each other platonic soulmates. So I think that our friendship, I'm biased because I'm half of the friendship. I think it's very special and unique. We've been best friends since I was 13. I'm 28 now. It's been 15 years. So I feel very blessed to have someone like that has seen me at my worst, at my best when I was 13, when I was 15, like when, and now I'm a grown woman, I think. I pay my own bills. So it's really nice to see someone because they know who you are, but they also see you grow. And I think it's very beautiful.
You think you're a grown woman? You are a grown woman.
Serious?
You are one.
You're right. It's like when you get older and you're like, I would feel more
I think I'm still there. I'm not sure. It's like, no, put a staple on it. Say what you have to say.
No, I got
say
my nails done recently, so now I feel like a grown woman.
It's like every day or like every year on my birthday, like, my relatives always ask me, like, oh, do you feel any older? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just another year, that's all.
Like, I grew more hair in my beard. I don't know. We're still the same people. I feel like as long as you're youthful, it's like, I don't know. Age is nothing but a number.
Exactly.
I didn't get taller, so I don't care.
I am trying to get skinnier, though, so hopefully, fingers crossed.
Oh, Jesus.
Joe's like, this again?
Like this bullshit again. My God. Okay.
No, it's women.
All right. So, Michelle, again, thank you very much for coming on. Maybe the next time you come on, your co-host, your platonic soulmate will be able to join you.
That would be beautiful. Yeah, she would have really enjoyed this. I didn't want to wait for anyone, but my roommates also want to watch the movie, so I'm going to wait for them to watch it and definitely talk about it. But Darius and Joe, thank you guys so much for having me on, for entertaining my little quirks, and I definitely feel honored to be here. And chat.
Little quirks, little quirks.
Quirk.
Well,
I don't see quirks, I see humans. That's
I like it. We're just beings of humans.
just kidding. But again, Darius, awesome. Thank you for being here with me today, yet again. And thank you everybody who's still watching.
I'm always here with you, man.
we're gonna soar together, man. In the film industry, I think the three of us are gonna soar together. I have a very good feeling about what's gonna come.
Gotta get back to my feature.
Oh, listen, don't ever stop. I'm like, let me leave you guys some lessons. Believe in yourself always. Don't ever stop. Literally. Because I feel like the people that never make it or achieve their dreams are the people that gave up. As long as we don't give up, we're going to make it eventually.
Exactly. Like, get used to the idea of you being...
Enjoy the process.
Yeah, get used to the idea of you being successful. That's what it comes down to.
Agreed.
So, to cap things off, for anyone who's watching on YouTube, don't forget to give this video a like, channel subscription, and hit the bell to get all notifications. Follow all of our social media platforms down below in the description. And check out our podcasting platform profiles on Apple and Spotify. And until next time, Michelle, thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much again. Have a great, safe weekend. Week. I don't know.
Week.
I'm about to go to school.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right, you too.
You too.
All right, and on that note, this has been Cinema Unchained.